You are listening to Third House Podcast, where we blend astrology, witchcraft, and creativity to design our own magical lives. I'm your host, Brittany Pastuhov, a psychic tarot reader, astrologer, and coach dedicated to helping ambitious witches overcome their fears and forge fulfilling, spiritually aligned vocational paths. Whether you're looking for guidance through astrology readings, tarot, or my signature astro-empowerment coaching, this is your space for inspiration. It's my hope that these episodes push you to embrace your dreams and turn them into reality. Let's dive into the magic.
Because we're recording this episode and we're going to put it on both of our podcasts. So this is a double podcast episode. And so, for my listeners, you will be introduced to Brittany. And for Brittany's listeners, I will be introduced to you. And so we're going to start off by each sharing a little bit about kind of our story and what we do. And I'm excited to hear about Brittany's story and who she is and what she does. So tell me.
Okay, so hi everyone. I am a tarot and astrology reader. I've been an astrologer since professionally since 2016, and I've been reading tarot since I was a teenager, but started reading cards for clients professionally later. And I also am a coach. I'm an astro-empowerment coach. So while I love to read charts and cards for clients, I also really love to go deep into the natal chart and coach people who want to take their career to the next level, who have a vocation of the heart or spirit that they're following, whether or not their day job fits that. Often they're in the midst of a transition in career to get to something more authentic, someone who is like maybe they went to law school or they're in banking because it was a safe choice, but now they're feeling the pull toward entrepreneurship or something that's like more touchy-feely, or like teaching or psychology that doesn't necessarily make as much money but feels more fulfilling. Like that's where I love to work, is like in that transition space. And we work with the chart, one, doing planetary magic to enhance something like a resume, job search, but also looking deep within oneself to what is authentic and what is the vision now, and using the chart as kind of a guide or compass toward that vision of vocation. So that's where like the sweet spot is for me between astrology and coaching, where I really love to work with vocational astrology.
I love that. I love that because it's kind of like the full package, right? You're like giving the astrology reading, and then you're like, and here's what we can do with it.
Right, here's how we can work with it. Just like read and look up a horoscope. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. So I am a what am I? I mean, I'm a magician, I guess. I teach magic.
Yeah, okay.
And shadow
it.
work, shadow alchemy. And my latest obsession has actually been hypnosis. And I've done like training and stuff around hypnosis in the past, but I've been doing kind of a deep dive, getting back into that lately and incorporating that more into what I'm offering, because so much of the work that I do is about working with the unconscious and interrupting those patterns and setting ourselves up to have it be able to step into new realities, right? Like carry ourselves into new realities and create kind of the lives that we want. By changing our identities, changing our beliefs, like updating the stories that we're telling about ourselves, both consciously and unconsciously. And so, that's really what my work is about. It's really like I'm really just always nerding out on the spiritual transformational journey. And yeah, sometimes that's people in kind of like trying to build a business. I have worked with people in that realm, but a lot of it is people who are just kind of like on their spiritual development path, and they've kind of a lot of people who were in kind of the like new age spirituality world, and then got kind of stuck in realizing like, oh, this isn't addressing some of the it's not like holistic enough, and wanting a more sort of holistic approach, which is part of why I love the planet so much, because it is a holistic system, right? And the shadow is so obviously I kind of treat shadow work separately from like planetary magic, but it's all so integrated and necessary, and the shadow work is kind of naturally embedded in this planetary system, because the planets each have their shadow side, right? And so we can look at it through the lens of the planets. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, that's what I'm about. That's what I'm doing.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, I love how also how you talked about because I was interested in how like you talk about coaching on existential kink, which I have that book by Caroline. What is her last name?
Carolyn Elliot.
It's Carolyn Elliot. She's amazing, and I love that approach to shadow work. Like, what is the central question, as far as I understand it, and you're more of an expert, is like, what is serving me about this? If I have like a lack of money or like I'm always feeling broke, like what is benefiting me from that brokenness that I'm actually getting kind of a little high from, that I'm getting a little pleasure out of? And what am I afraid of? The idea of wealth, right? And so she really unlocks this whole pattern of like, if there's a pattern in your life that you keep repeating, there could be something a little kinky about it. There could be something you're actually kind of enjoying, even though you feel like it's unlucky or that in a bad way. Um, yeah, I think that's so
Yeah.
interesting and so fruitful in terms of transformation.
Yeah, and when you dive into the world of EK, which I
Mhm,
have spent the last maybe like 7 years or so in, um, they what you'll find is that sometimes that thing that you're getting is
mhm,
completely unconscious. It's a completely
totally.
unconscious kink. So there won't necessarily be like a rational explanation for it. It's like
Right.
you're comfortable in this kind of discomfort or you
Mhm,
have yeah, there's some sort of part of your unconscious self that is kinky and that is getting off on it. And so
mhm,
it's about yeah, and the practice of EK is about like just allowing yourself to experience that, allowing yourself to sort of embody the part that is getting off on it and
mm,
feel the turn on so that you can release it and let the pattern go. Yeah, it's
mm.
a really powerful practice.
Yeah. How do you find, and I know that planetary magic and EK are separate modalities that you may work with in different at different times. How do you find that when a client is doing planetary magic and also doing some EK in other sessions, how those might correspond to each other or collaborate in some way? Have you ever noticed like some sync between them?
Yes and no. I mean, so Carolyn, like me, teaches both magic and EK, and I feel like
Mhm.
she really kind of to me they're actually very different. So to me
Okay.
they're very different processes. Like to me
Mhm,
EK is very much like shadow work and it is magical. It does feel magical, but I see it as like a
mhm,
psychological, spiritual sort of like practice.
mhm,
Whereas magic to me, where you're kind of I think of it as a solve where you're unraveling things, right? You're like loosening those kinky attachments. You're loosening the pattern. You're releasing the
mhm,
pattern. Whereas the planetary magic, I think of as, I mean, it can be solve or coa. It can be both like loosening and bringing together. Um,
mhm,
but it's more like you're working with an archetype and it's sort of a different way of communicating with the unconscious. It's more like directed. With EK,
mhm,
we're kind of opening and we're like allowing ourselves to feel what's present. And
mhm,
with the magic, I feel like it doesn't necessarily have to be goal oriented, but there is kind of this like directed arrow. We're using
mhm.
where we're pointing towards something and we kind of have an
Mhm.
intention.
Sure.
And yeah, EK is really about like kind of opening, surrendering, releasing judgment, releasing attachment, releasing shame so that you can feel. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, magic usually is, there's some kind of intention or goal for it in order for it to work, and it's best, I think, when there's some strategy behind it too, that we're not just randomly kind of doing a spell here and there for love, but that we, like, kind of really know what we're looking for, and there's action in the real world too. Um, but I also find that when I do planetary magic, that there are insights that come up or people that I meet or like I get directed into a certain flow where now I understand, oh, this is what I need to be doing.
Mhm.
Um, for example, I've been working a lot with Mars and it's my Mars perfection year. I just like posted a reel about how it's going because I'm like tripled my iron supplements and started lifting weights, like very like classic. Mars things, but like in trying to work with Mars, which hasn't always been like the easiest planet for me, I find that I am kind of getting directed to these insights about what I need right now and what's going to work best for me or the best way to approach something. And
Yes.
that can feed into like what's subconsciously making me, not want to work out or like, whatever it is. Um, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's how I find they kind of feed into each other is that like it's not that I intended to create a link, but that like the planet will start to open things up for me to explore.
Totally, totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like showing you where you need to shine the microscope. And yeah, I mean, it's
Mhm.
all connected because it's all working with our psyche. Um,
Right.
and I'm actually really curious. So I'm curious because I kind of, I spend a lot of time on this podcast talking about like what magic is and kind of what I
Mhm.
think magic is. And I'd be really curious to hear sort of how you sort of define or understand magic, like what it is to you.
That's such a good question that I wasn't expecting. Let me think about
Sorry,
it.
that's too much
No,
taking.
that's all right. I use the term witch to describe myself. So I say that I'm a witch and that my work is for the ambitious witches and who, want to direct and create change and really have a more extraordinary life. So I think that magic is the act of will on our environment and life. It's an act of will on wherever we are projecting it, and then we all have magic within us. It is this kind of force of will that we have. That's how I think of it. Not just us, but any spirit has agency and will as well. So we can sometimes partner with or ask, for example, planetary spirits to help us, and that can create a kind of teamwork that, magnifies our will in a way. But I think we're all very powerful with this force within us that actually can act on things and change things.
Mm. I love that. I love that so much. Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like well,
What
part
do
of the
you
reason I asked it because I feel like I've been a little stuck in um how I've been defining magic because
mm,
I over rationalize things and I've
mm,
been noticing like, oh, Lucy, you have this kind of need to like rationalize even magic. And I think that I
mm,
can rationalize it quite well. And I'm just like, what
please.
if I just surrender to the truth of like how mysterious and actually magical magic
Mm,
is? And so um what you've just described I think is really beautiful and it kind of rhymes with something that I've been leaning into because I was speaking with a friend recently who was talking she kept bringing up this idea of fate and all these like
mm,
moments in her life and she was pointing to the other people's stories and the moments in their lives where it sort of felt like it was this moment of like fate where this where you
mm,
meet this person or this thing doesn't work out and this like really kind of you feel that weight in that moment and it's like this was fate and so yeah I've been thinking of of magic as maybe like what you're saying like incorporating our will into our fate like almost like
mm.
tinkering with our fate in a way.
Right, and sometimes literally working with the thread of fate or yeah, like, because I think the chart in a way is a kind of I don't think it's predetermined fate, but it is kind of like a picture of fate in some ways that you can actually choose which level you're going to play on, right? Like, which version of this story do you want to be told?
I love that. Yeah.
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 So and some people say magic is science that hasn't been explained yet by science. So, I mean, there could be a rational explanation for why we are able to affect will in the world with our words and our magical materia.
Yeah. I kind of like
Yeah.
teeter because I do feel like part of the human experience is to like surrender to the mystery,
Mm,
surrender to, and I feel like with science, it's like we think we can transcend that. And
mhm,
I think it is very confusing because when you actually break it down, like science doesn't really answer any of the big questions at all. You have
mm,
to have that, like the philosophy asks the questions And
Mhm.
even philosophy doesn't really answer them. And that is the foundation for all of science. And so science
Mhm.
is sort of like this sandcastle that's just floating. It has no grounding,
Right.
in my opinion. Um,
Yeah, I think it's interesting, like, science is this curious process of understanding how it works, you know? It doesn't necessarily answer why it works and often still hasn't answered how it works, right? But that's, like, what
yeah,
we're trying to instead, sometimes we just name things.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so, yeah, magic gets at this other level of it for me where I feel more empowered to take my fate into my own hands and actually work my chart.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious
Mhm.
too. So I've been like I'm curious because you say that you said that you work with people mostly like who are trying to kind of like start change shift careers into something more sort of soulful and aligned for them. And I'm
Yeah.
curious about like goal orientation, because I see a lot
Mhm.
about I feel like, sometimes, like, really spiritual purist people are sort of, like I've noticed, can be really sort of, like, anti-goals, and then I do
Mm.
feel like kind of on the other end of the spectrum, there's people who are, like, super sort of goal obsessed, and I'm curious, like, where you are on that spectrum and how you kind of, like, balance those in the work that you do.
I probably fall under the more goal obsessed end of the spectrum. I'm like currently I have this product called the Lunar Cycle Planner that I use with all of my clients, and it's essentially setting goals and planning micro goals with the lunar cycles to break it down. Since I learned that I have ADHD late in life, I've also been revising that into a new mini course that's coming out. Where I'm just like adding more strategies that have worked for me as a neurodivergent person in terms of goal setting and flexibility and still make sense. But like for me, goals, like for a lot of my clients, the goals can be kind of traumatic like experiences because they like feel the sense of failure or it wasn't a goal that they cared about enough. And so we kind of reframe how we're working towards things and even use different language like this is your beacon and we're moving toward, this lighthouse on your path, like just so that people can make progress without feeling locked into what our overculture kind of thinks of as goal setting and success or failure. But I do think it's important if you want to transform your life, as you say, and embody a new identity, to have goals on the way there to help you mark your path and have something to work towards. So I would say I'm a very goal-oriented person, so that works for me, but I would also say that, like, I used to shame myself a lot if I didn't do what I wanted to do, and now I'm much more open and flexible about my strategies for things like creative writing, which is, a passion and part of my work as well.
I love that.
And
I love that so
yeah.
much. And thank you
What's
for
your
giving me permission. I feel
Yeah.
like I feel like I'm also a very goal-oriented person, but I
Yeah.
get very intense, and sometimes in my
Mhm.
sort of, like, spirituality, I can get very puritanical myself, so then
Mm.
I'm judging myself for being too goal-oriented, and I feel like
Oh,
I kind of, like, teeter between the like, I'm both and like,
yeah.
I'm really both. Some of my work is very goal-oriented, and I'm a very goal-oriented person, but then
Mhm.
also, it's like my number 1 life goal is to, like, move in, like, the true spiritually aligned kind of direction, and so I feel like I
Mhm.
get confused, and I feel I give myself a hard time for being, like, too goal-oriented,
Mm.
like, I should be more just, like, spiritual and not needing to have these, like, outcomes,
Yeah.
but to me, that's kind of what makes life fun, is to, like, reach for things and have a direction that we're
Yeah.
going.
I agree, and I think, like, part of being a magician instead of someone who's in, like, an organized religion with a leader is having that agency, right, to direct the path, and so, like, the idea of just surrender, to me, it comes a lot from other philosophies, like Christian philosophy or Buddhist philosophy sometimes, that you're just surrendering to what is. It can be useful, um, but, yeah, I don't think they have to be in tension with each other. Like, I also teach, the Venus codes, which is a course that I have, and, like, it's all about relaxation and pleasure, which has been hard for me, like, to learn, you know? Like, that's the other side of it is, like, if you're an ambitious person who likes to work, it can be really hard to just receive or just relax, and I've actually found that work with Venus and planetary magic with Venus to actually be so fruitful for me, who has Venus in Virgo, who likes to work, you know, like,
Yeah.
so it's a
I love
good
that so much.
balance, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love what you said about, like, that's what makes it different from organized religion, like, that's what being a magician is. I really like that.
Yeah.
And did you say you have Venus in Virgo?
Mhm.
I also have Venus in Virgo, and I'm also a
Oh.
very, like, ambitious, sort of, like to work and do things, and I tend to
Mhm.
be a very sort of, like, martial person, and it is hard. I've been doing a lot of work around just, like, trying to relax and working with Venus.
Mhm.
I've been working with Venus a lot and about, like, relaxing and
I love
receiving, and
it.
for me, the first layer was really Saturn, like, working with Saturn
Mm.
to, allow myself to have, like, more fluid structures. Like, I need
Mhm.
structure, I really, really need it, and I need it to be fluid. I need it to be I
Mhm.
need it to, like, serve me and not just, like, restrict me, and
Right.
so that's where Saturn, I feel like, is so important for me because it's like lead. It's, like, so dense, but it's soft.
Mm.
And so
Mm.
it can shift its form, like, the structure is always there, but it can shift and change to, like, suit the needs of the moment and, like, the truth of the moment,
Mhm.
hold, like, the physical reality of a moment. Um,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that, like, working with Saturn in a more kind of flexible way, and also because, yeah, the structure is there to serve you, you're not there to serve the structure, and I also think of Saturn as things that are lasting or things that take a long time, which can be hard for me as a goal-oriented person to be like, "This is gonna take a long time." Like, no, I want the gratification immediately, like all humans. Um, but that idea of, like, a structure that's going to serve you long term, it can't be too rigid because life happens.
Yeah. And I think that's the
Yeah.
biggest lesson with Saturn is about just like facing the truth of reality.
Mm.
And so part of honoring reality is to have, yeah, fluidity within structure. But
Mhm.
also we need to be contained in order to be able to build things. Like we have to have the foundation to build. But
Mhm.
I'm a very like impatient person and I'm actually so I have a program on Saturn called Melt, which is like I really recommend it for anybody who like struggles with yeah, just like time and structure and all that stuff. But
Mm.
um I'm in like a Jupiter program process right now.
Nice.
And kind of one of the mantras of it is like the slow, steady path is the fastest
Mm.
way. Just like
Right.
allowing that to recognize that committing to that is actually
Mhm.
the fastest way to get where we really want to go. And
Mhm.
and kind of just like claiming that and accepting that. And that doesn't mean that magic won't happen and something might come, that it like you're open to being struck by lightning and it does just kind of mysteriously happen like that, but you have to
Mhm.
start down the path.
Mhm.
Because if you're always trying to avoid and find shortcuts, you can just you just like end up in the wilderness. Right.
Right, right. That's so true. Yeah, or just spinning in circles, which, um,
Exactly.
do you have like a favorite or easiest planet to work with or one that's been more of a struggle for you?
So I am very obsessed with Saturn.
Okay, I love that.
And yeah, like I do probably like my favorite course that I offer is on Saturn. And it's called
Mm.
Melt. It's about like literally melting into like 4D reality with Saturn, like
Ooh, okay.
um but I'm a very Mars person. Um
Mm.
who struggles with like Venus. So I feel like
Mhm.
Venus is where a lot of, like, medicine is for me, and I've been working with Venus, like, more and more because I see how, like, that's the energy that 'cause I'm a little bit I would say, like, I would diagnose myself as being slightly out of balance, like,
Mm.
leaning more towards Mars, and I wanna be more centered between that
Mm.
polarity within that polarity. So, like, so Mars comes really naturally to me, but I don't really work with Mars very much because I'm like, "I've got
Mhm.
that."
You already
And
Mars. Yeah.
so I'm always calling in or what I'm haven't been calling in enough and I'm doing a lot more with now is
Mhm.
Venus.
Mm.
Yeah. What about you?
I love that. Yeah, we're a little bit opposite that way. I respect Saturn, but it's been a long journey with Saturn to really feel that sense of structure and time. Like, I feel like I've fought a lot against structure and time and discipline in my
Mhm.
life. Though it may not have seemed that way to other people, like internally. I think that I don't do a lot of work with Mercury, but I am also always working with Mercury as an astrologer and a writer. It's like that's the one I think that comes the most naturally to me that I do not think about as much. And then other planets, I'm like more conscious of doing planetary magic with them. I actually bought some, it wasn't just Mercury materia, it was its own thing from Sphere and Sundry, but it was like heavily featuring Mercury. And it made me like too ADHD. I was like, I have too many ideas. I'm like writing everything down. This is too much. Like, I need something to sedate me, you know? So yeah, too much Mercury is like overload for me because I already have that essence, like it comes very naturally to me, or at least I've worked with it a lot in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Mercury is kind of always there because I feel like Mercury is so central in our culture and society and
That's true
magic.
too.
Mercury is a magician.
Mhm.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. And it's
Yeah.
funny too what you said about Saturn because I think the reason why I'm so obsessed with Saturn, I always say, is because I need it more than anybody.
Mm.
Like I am like I need Saturn the most, and that's why I'm obsessed with it because I'm like, this is the thing that I'm always struggling with.
Yeah. Where is your Saturn in your chart?
So I have Saturn in Capricorn in
Oh,
my
okay.
11th house, but it's
Got it.
conjunct with
Okay.
like Uranus and Neptune, maybe.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, but also like one of your jobs is to bring Saturn to your collective, that Saturn, a new take on Saturn. I need your course because, yeah, still working with Saturn. um, yeah. I like to think of Saturn, like lately, I've found more openness for me and thinking of Saturn as crone energy, like wise grandmother energy. And that kind of unlocked something for me where I was like, oh, I've been thinking of this like restrictive, masculine, kind of patriarchal structure, but really, this could be wise grandmother energy that says, slow down, take it one step at a time.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. I had a Saturn course that I made years ago, and then I just remade a new one. And the first one was a very masculinized Saturn, and the second
Hmm.
version of the course was much more of the grandmother version. Like I really like between creating those courses, I really like leaned much deeper into the like Saturn as the womb of reality, Saturn as like black empty space and that yes, the grandmother, exactly. Um, yeah, I do, I really love Saturn, and that is really helpful for people, I think, especially where we are right now, sort of culturally, it's like, um, because there is a toughness, that is what 4D that is what like, it's dense. Reality like, the
Hmm.
human experience, to me, Saturn is like it's like the human experience is dense. It's hard. There's so much that comes along with, like, being embodied. And so the answer is to me, it's like we have to face death. And if we until we kind of we have to kinda confront it, because it's part of what makes us human is, like, our short lifespan is kind of a central defining characteristic of a human. We would not be what we are if we lived, for hundreds of years. It would be such a different thing.
Mm.
Like it's
That's so
in
profound.
everything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I just had this realization that like I avoid thinking about mortality with my belief in reincarnation because I'm just like, I'll just do it in the next lifetime. I'm coming back, which
Yeah.
is, in some ways avoidance. Yeah.
But it's
That's
interesting
yeah.
because that's interesting though, because there is also a flip side because I also believe in reincarnation. And there is a flip side, which I have confronted, done a lot of work around it myself, which is actually the fear of eternity,
Mm,
which to me is actually more terrifying than
that
death.
is more terrifying because it never ends. Like, are you kidding? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a
I
lot.
love
The
that.
Saturn themes are a lot.
It's intense and deep. I love hearing you talk about it.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious. I always like to ask people how they got into magic or when they first knew that they were magical.
Yeah, so I did ayahuasca medicine work for, like,
Mm,
8 plus years, very sort of regularly and consistently,
mm,
and, took it very, like, intensely,
mhm.
and, it was kind of like the defining, like, theme of my 20s, let's say, and
Okay.
so I, there's a lot that comes with that, but you really feel the truth of the mysterious nature of reality and like the power of the human consciousness, and that
Mm,
things are so much more than we can comprehend. And so you're just constantly faced with the reality of um yeah, magic and mystery. But I remember one of my friends from within that community one day was just like very she was just like, magic is real.
mm.
And I was like, yeah. Yeah, of course. Like, of course it is. But the way that she said it, it just kind of like struck me. And I was just like, holy
Mhm.
shit, yeah, it is. And then I kind of like dove down the rabbit hole of learning about magic and spent a lot of time learning from Carolyn, Elliot, who wrote
Mhm.
Existential Kink, and, working
Yes.
for her and learning. And she had me like reading all these books and studying all this like old magic and different things, and had to do all
Mm,
these like practices. And but through that really have always I wanted to like s really built my own relationship, especially with the planetary archetypes, and felt like,
mhm,
I wanted people to, like, know that they could have their own relationship with these archetypes,
mm.
and, yeah, that's kinda how I got into it. What about you?
I love that story. That's a very intense initiation to come through ayahuasca. Like, you know, that's I haven't talked to anyone else who was initiated in that way into magic, but um, really cool. Very cool. For me, it was Wicca in the 90s. Like I was like 15 and I was like, didn't wanna conform to my Christian church, which was kind of a problem for my mother, who was, like, raised Southern Baptist, and I wasn't, but I think there was, like, a holdover where she was like, "What do you mean? Of course you're gonna be in the church. You're gonna you just do it. You just go through the confirmation class and say yes." Like, it's not something you're supposed to think about that much. Um, so I went on this whole like spiritual search for like my religion at like 15, and I found a book on Wicca by Scott Cunningham. It was like the book, The Solitary Practitioner. And this was before, no, we didn't really have information on the internet. Like I had to go to a Borders like outside of my rural town in Maine and like find this book. And so I like self-initiated. And then since then I've just been on this path of witchcraft. I've been in a traditional coven and been initiated there, and now I'm solo again because I moved and like on this whole parenting journey as a pagan witch. But that's been my journey. Was like I always knew that I was spiritual in a different way than I was raised, and so it just took me a little bit to find that. And it also like I watched Practical Magic with my best friend around the same time and was like, "This movie is meaningful to me on a level that I cannot explain, but like that feels right."
Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
cool. I've actually never studied or really learned anything about Wiccan magic, which is funny to me because 'cause I've
Mm.
been like, it was so much there was so much around, like, Egyptian and, Eastern
Mhm.
philosophy. I studied Eastern philosophy in
Yeah.
college and even in high school, and, like, I studied, like, Western magic, like Hermeticism and obviously astrology,
Mhm.
but never learned about Wiccan magic, like, know almost nothing
Yeah.
about it. It's
I mean, it's like, Gerald Gardner in England in like the 50s was saying that he'd been initiated by someone in a traditional coven and like it hasn't really been proven, you know, like it's sort of like it was essentially like a new religion that was invented, or but it certainly it borrows a lot from those old ways, things you've learned from Hermeticism, things you've learned from other things, and then became its own kind of version. So people have a lot of different ways of relating to it. Like I don't really consider myself Wiccan as much now, but that was the framework that I found that seemed to fit and work for me. Now I would say that my practices tend more toward like traditional witchcraft of paying attention to the land where I am and the seasons of that land and the spirits of that land. And that's how it's kind of evolved. But in the 90s, that's what I had access to. And so that felt like the best fit for me, you know?
That's so funny. Yeah, because like, with ayahuasca, it's so much about the land and the spirits in the land and the
Mhm.
ancestors. And then, in like the Western, Hermeticism and like Golden Dawn and all of that. And even Egyptian
Mhm.
magic, there's a lot around like orienting towards the directions and the associations with the different directions and the elements. But then, and so
Right.
it all kind of is like the same,
A lot
but
of it will intersect. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, but I've never considered myself a witch. Like,
Mhm.
I've never identified with that word. Like, I use the word magician sort of like, I don't know if this is even the word, but, um,
Yeah, no, totally.
yeah, I definitely like, I've never done anything with, like, herbs or, like,
Mm.
I'm not like a
Mhm.
kitchen witch type magician. Like, I mean, I drink teas and things like that, but, like, yeah, that is, like, so outside my realm of knowledge.
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself a kitchen witch either because the kitchen witches are amazing at what they do with culinary arts, but I would say that since becoming a mom, it's been more of a central focus, you know, putting magic in the food or making like a potion tea spell or something. I think where I tend to thrive most is in seer work and psychic work and like psychic, like almost mental magic or dream work. That's like where and also like the planetary, of course, being an astrologer, the planetary magic.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, but, like, one way to get into herbalism for people who are interested is through the planets and, like, identifying which plants sort of align with that particular planet and, like, bringing more rose in for Venus or, more, like, plants associated with Mars tend to be kind of, like, bitter or, like, very, sort of, like, aggressive in their actions, but they can be very healing. I recently learned, like, that, like, the pine tree is one of the trees that can be associated with Mars, and I've been working a lot with pine. So, like, sometimes that can be an entryway in too, where it can become part of the basis for a planetary spell or something like
Yeah.
that. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to do more with, like, like cayenne pepper and, like, different like,
Yeah.
honey and working with different things.
Mhm.
I feel like I could get more into that. I have started to, like, I've been moving more in the direction of, like, because yeah, I'm so in the mental space and, I
Mhm.
have a degree in cognitive science, and I'm just, like,
Okay.
so always been so obsessed with, like, language and the human mind and, like, philosophy,
Yeah.
and, I get these headaches.
Mm.
And I was actually, like, having one of these headaches recently, and I was like I literally just I f okay, this is such a random, like, side tangent, but I was
Mhm.
thinking about headaches and how annoying they are because, like, I feel like I'm always, like, in my head, and I was
Mhm.
like, "What if I just, like, move down into my body?" And it was
Yeah.
so interesting because I do a lot of work to move into my body, like, when I'm doing practices and
Mhm.
stuff, but my default is to feel like I am in my head, like, my consciousness is
Sure.
here.
Mhm.
And so I literally, like, moved my consciousness down into my body, and
Mm.
it was like I was in my living room and with my family, and I was like, "I need to go in my office and just, like, do this for a little while." And it was crazy
Mhm.
because it did, like, I could feel how it softened the headache, like, it really
Mm.
almost completely went away at times. And so this is my new practice of, like, getting out of my head and, like,
Mhm.
holding my consciousness, like, it's almost like a muscle, like, holding it
Mhm.
down here, um, and but I've also been in this place of, like, wanting to work with my hands more because 'cause I've been so much
Mm.
online, like, I've always been I always have, like, little hobbies where I'm, like, doing cross stitch or doing whatever, but I wanna
Yeah.
incorporate that more into my magic, like, doing
Mhm.
things with my hands, like, creating things, and, yeah, so this conversation is inspiring me.
Yeah, that 4D reality.
Exactly.
Yeah, and all the plants also have, like, spirits, so when I work with rosemary, I'll, let's say, and if it's dried rosemary, I'll wake it up, I'll say, your rosemary, like, remember, because 'cause you're essentially working with, like, the corpse of rosemary, right? So, like, you have to, like, wake it up a little bit and then say, "This is what I want you to do for me, please." And I found that to be very effective in my magic, to work with the spirit of the plant, or even if you're more of a mental person, to, like, journey to that plant or, like, try to communicate with that plant. But, like, there is something about touching things in the 4D, especially in this kind of virtual world that we're finding, that we need to take a break from it and just be part of the world and remember that, like, these sensory experiences are not optional.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, so much there. I love what you said about that you're waking up the plant. I feel
Yeah.
like that you've just blown the minds of so many people listening to this.
If it's
Certainly
dried,
mine.
if it's fresh, you probably it's awake, but, like, yeah, if it's dried,
Yeah.
I found that, and I don't remember where I learned that, it was from someone else, but it has been very effective.
Yeah, that's so fascinating.
Mhm,
Yeah, you're right, and yeah, the whole, like, experience of being a human is so intense, and we have all of these allies here,
mhm,
these plant allies and, um, yeah, that can help soothe our experience and take us into different
mhm.
sort of realities and realms, and so, yeah, there's so much to explore.
Yeah, but even, like, you without allies, just moving your consciousness down, like, that sounds like magic. To someone who suffers from migraines, for you to be like, "I just decided to not have a headache by moving my consciousness down lower into my body," is, like, that's mind-blowing too.
Yeah, but it's not, it's like as someone who's been doing somatic work for like years,
Yeah.
it's like it's a
Mhm.
skill that I have built to be able to do that.
Right.
I remember the first time somebody took me through a process like that and it just totally blew my mind. But yeah, using it in this
Mhm.
way of like, oh, if I just maybe this headache won't be so because it can be just like so
Right.
all consuming. And it's like,
Sure.
well, if my consciousness is down here, then yeah, anyways, it is cool. It is cool what we can
It
do
is
with ourselves.
magic, you know? It seems like when you've been practicing a modality for so long that it becomes more natural, or, like, there's a lot of skills that you built that went into that one moment, right? Like, that got you there. But then to someone who doesn't know about it, it's just like, "What do you mean you just, thought away your headache?" Like, that's magical.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Yeah,
is true. That
and our
is
mind
true.
has so many effects on the body. Um Do you have, like, otherwise, like, a favorite story about a result from planetary magic that kind of blew your mind or was just, like, so on point with what you had chosen? Or perhaps, like, a mistake of, like, something that, didn't go the way you thought it would?
I feel like the thing in my life, that I feel was the most sort of synchronistic, magical, big result that I've had was buying my house. Um,
Mm,
because
yes.
I as somebody who works for myself, just, like, being even in a position to be able to get a mortgage
Yes.
was, um seemed, like, insurmountable.
Mhm.
I'm the sole breadwinner in my family, um,
Okay.
so just, like, me being able to buy I live in Connecticut,
Mm,
so I did Jupiter magic and, um I kind of, like, was so I'm not gonna say I did I wanted to buy a house for a long time, and it just felt like this kind of
mhm.
impossible goal. So it's
Right.
not like it wasn't, like, so when people tell these stories, it's really easy to kind of, like, be like, "And then it just happened all of a sudden," and it is how it felt, but there
Right.
was a lot of, like, there is a whole iceberg there, right? It kind of like what we just talked about, where it's like,
Mhm.
there's all of these unknown kind of like things that are coming in this moment and creating the facilitating this thing happening.
Mhm.
Um, but it did feel so magical because it was sort of like there was there was like suddenly an intense need, an intense desire, and everything just kind of came together in a way that I would have thought like that's not possible, like rationally. And there was
Mhm.
also a clear directive. Like I was actually, um, like it was so I had been renting a house and it fell
Mhm.
through in a sort of dramatic way. And I ended up having to move
Mhm.
into my mom's house. And I was living in
Mm.
this is embarrassing, but it happened. I was
Yeah.
living in my mom's house with a bunch of kids and my husband. And she had like a
Mhm.
pretty good setup for us. Like we had a few bedrooms
Sure.
and stuff. But, it was just not it's just hard when you have a kids and
Yeah.
toddlers to be living, and my mom, like, worked from home, and it was just, like, very challenging. And I remember being on the phone with my dad, and he was like, "You have to get out of there." Um, my parents are long divorced, but he actually
Sure.
was saying about my husband, 'cause my husband was really struggling in this scenario,
Right. This
and
is
he
gonna
was
be
like,
for your marriage, important for
"Yeah,
your
you
family.
have to
Yeah.
get him out of there."
Mhm.
And I I, like, had a contract to buy a house within a month of him saying like, there was just this, like, zing, like, "Yes, I do, and now I'm gonna
Yeah.
go do that." And I had done a lot of Jupiter magic, like, right before that,
Yeah.
and actually gone to Croatia. There's a Jupiter temple in Croatia, in
Mm.
Split,
Oh,
Croatia,
I
that we
love that.
visited, and we went there and we did a ritual around, like, getting our house, and then,
Yes.
it was at the time so this was 3 years ago when the housing market was insane. It was, like, it
Mhm.
was at the end of COVID, and when we came to the house that I now own, there was a line down the driveway and into the road. It was an open house, and I was
Mhm.
just like, "How the fuck are we ever gonna buy a house in this housing environment?" And it was, like, kind of at the bottom of the market in terms of, like, price, is like
Sure. So a lot of people
um
interested because it's fine, like, they can afford it and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and I specifically chose one that was, like, uh yeah, at the bottom so that I could
Mhm.
because, we had to overbid to get the house,
Sure. There's
because
that
people were
market.
having,
We
like,
did
bidding
too.
wars and yeah, houses were
Yeah.
going for more than they were yeah, and there was this whole
Yeah.
drama around, like, is it gonna get up it was so stressful, but
So
we fucking did
dramatic.
it, and it
Yay.
was just wild, and looking back now, I'm just like,
Yeah.
"Wow, that was so fucking magical." So
Thank you,
that
Jupiter.
was that's kind of my big, like, Jupiter magic win,
I love
and then
that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
love people's house buying magic stories because it does feel so magical and it's so important, like, where you live, your home. Like, I also worked with Jupiter to get our house during a crazy market 5 years ago, and, you confuse real estate agents because like, no one made an offer on it, that they had to take the price down, so then our real estate agent told us about it, and that's, like, how we, like, started to get it, but the syncs with Jupiter and Hecate was involved, she would like to be mentioned. I keep hearing in this podcast, I work with Hecate a lot. Hecate was also central, but, like, the planetary part, I worked a lot with Jupiter, and it was like there was a the week before we got the house, like, there was a bull that kept coming into the yard of the place we were staying to eat the apples. It kept getting out of, like, the farm next door, they had to keep coming to get it, and then when we walked into the house, there was, like, a painting of a bull right there, and when you tell these stories, people are like, "And?" Like, it only makes sense if you're, like, in the synchronicity at the moment, but it was,
Mhm.
like, an extremely magical kind of time of alignment, so I get what you're saying. It's like, how are we gonna get this? There's a line down the block. People are making cash offers, overbidding, like, it's insane. But magic can really help in those situations where it gives you an advantage that you didn't have, like, wealth-wise, right? Or, like, in a otherwise, like, in a market sense, and I find that with, like, jobs too, with people I've worked with getting jobs, that they didn't necessarily think they could get, or didn't dare to hope for before.
Yeah, to me, it's like there's always a path, and
Yeah.
doing the magic kinda helps you, like, find that just right path that gets to the thing. It's like,
Mhm.
it's not fantasy magic, like, it has to be physically possible within the real world, but it's like
Mhm.
you can find the one path that's gonna get you to the destination where everything is gonna kind of
Right.
fall into place.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm curious if you have a similar what's your version of, like, super, super magical, like, thing that you like to share? Story.
Um, like, the house buying one was a big one for us. I also have been working a lot with the sun. I have the sun like in Libra, so not in like a great position for the sun to be in. It's also like at the bottom of my chart, so like not the sunshiniest. I'm very lunar chart. Um, so I've worked with the sun a lot for visibility, for success, for getting comfortable with visibility and success, and like to some degree, like entrepreneurship and money stuff. And one thing that I found that was interesting was like I started wearing this talisman of soul, which this one came from Tony Mack and Sphere and Sundry, and immediately started getting really irritated with the part-time job that I had at the time. Like really mad, this is not using my skills in the best way. It's wasting my time. This isn't like how I thought it would go. Like, why am I even? This is just, it's not, I would be making more money not working here, right? In my own business. And so that got me like, that kind of drove me to leave, like, obviously give notice and everything, but like to go and just focus and believe in my own business at a time when I was feeling some self-doubt and some stress around it. So like that, the way that magic works on you, like kind of emotionally and mentally sometimes in ways that you didn't expect. Because I think sun, happiness, light, sunshine, right? But at first it was just making me really irritable, like with a situation in which I, felt like disempowered. And so that wasn't really good enough for soul. Um, yeah. So I find it works that way too, where it will like just like you had to be in your mom's house before you found your own house, which is not abnormal. So often doing magic, like in my experience and other people's experiences I've worked with, will kind of kick you out of a situation that was like good enough, but not that great.
Yeah. Yeah, we totally
Yeah.
got kicked out of this house we were renting, which we loved that house too. And then
Yeah.
I thought there's no better house for us than this house. And then being so humbled, like living with my mom, like in my 30s with all my kids.
Mhm.
And then um finding this house, which at first glance, I was like, "What the hell? Like, is this seriously?" And then now it's like, this house is perfect. It is so perfect. I love everything
Mhm.
about it. Yeah, it's
Good.
just wild. Yeah. And
Yeah.
home is so important. My Jupiter is also in Cancer in my 4th house.
Okay. So
So,
really important.
yeah, it makes sense that
Yeah.
the Jupiter synchronicity would really like call in the home.
Yes, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think that like and sometimes the universe knows what's like it's like Jupiter could see more than you could see of the lay of the land at that time, right? And so like sometimes there is a surrender and trust that comes with like I'm going to get something even better than what I asked for, or they're going to find a way to get me what I asked for and I don't really know what it is yet, but it is going to be perfect for me.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and it's like and with, like, the job that you had,
Yeah.
it's like, maybe it's really great on paper, but then it's not what's true for you, and so it's calling
Right.
you to, like, step into what is true for you in a more profound
Mhm.
way.
Yeah, too safe. I find that I tend to sort of like metaphorically or literally get kind of kicked out of jobs that are too safe for me until I just have to do entrepreneurship, which at this point I'm like, it's just gonna be entrepreneurship. Like that's it. I'm done, trying to take a safe part-time job to make some cash on the side or whatever. But that's like my story. I'm curious like how entrepreneurship may have like evoked things spiritually for you? I know that it's spiritual entrepreneurship, but how have you grown as a person just by running your own business?
I mean, it's like a constant thing because it is very confronting. Um,
Mhm.
I have never had a, like, real job. Um
Mm.
I mean, I worked for Carolyn for a long I worked within her business as
Okay.
a contractor for years and kind of sold my programs through her business for a long time. I worked
Hmm.
as, like, an employee for her for 6 months, and then
Mhm.
the universe ended that, um, and was just like, "Nope." So and that was not true for that was a beautiful, like, ending and opening, and I think that, you know, on my bad days, I'm like, "I should just get a fucking job." That would be so
Right.
easy. It would be so easy to have a job. and just know you're gonna
Yeah.
get, you know? But
Yeah.
then my husband is always like, "Dude, you would hate it. You would hate it."
Yeah. Mhm.
And I think, yeah, on a bad day, it's like the grass is greener. Um,
Totally.
but it forces me to I don't, like, super struggle with visibility because I have
Mhm.
a Leo stellium.
Mhm.
Um, and so visibility hasn't been my is not but and I know it is for so many people that I work with, it's like that's really a
Mhm.
big one. For me, it's more just like, I have to I am just a little diva sometimes about, like, I need it to feel, like, true and in my creative flow, and
Yes.
I have to be inspired or I'm just not gonna fucking do it.
Right, which sometimes when you have to do some things for your business that are just need to get done, it can be a real struggle to be your own boss and, like, make yourself do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
also it's like I always have to kind of innovate, and if I'm not feeling it, I'm not gonna launch it, and then
Right.
there's this tension between like, well, I kinda need to start thinking about making money soon. And
Mhm.
also
Yeah.
like, yeah, but I'm not doing that, and so it's always a trust fall of like,
Mhm.
okay, well, I'm gonna do something different here and it might not work. And then I might be in big trouble financially, but this is what has to happen. And so, and I always kind of push things to the last minute, I
Mhm.
like that. I've been kind of in that, I've been a little stuck in this game with that I'm currently like trying to shed some beliefs around and doing some fun like
Mhm.
hypnosis on myself around. But yeah, yeah, it really for it's like, my big, like, spiritual work is always in trusting and surrendering, and I feel like as
Mhm.
somebody who, like, literally teaches fucking magic and is teaching this all the
Mhm.
time, it's like I am I hold myself to the fire, so I'm like, "We are gonna walk the fucking walk, or we're not doing
Mhm.
it," and so I feel like, I have this weird game of, like, forcing myself to be in that by, like, making risky decisions and, like, to
Mhm.
so that I have to constantly be, like, surrendering and, like,
Mhm.
trusting the universe and trusting the planets and trusting that everything is gonna work out, and it always fucking does. It
It always
always
when you
does.
actually do it, like, you're all the way surrendered into it, it always does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that because it can be very confronting, and I think, like, for me, it's been, like, to some degree, like, hiding or some kind of hiding through perfectionism, right? Like, getting a project almost to the finish line and then being like, "Oh, no, I need to completely redo it." Like, "Oh, no, this needs to be like this can't be seen yet." And just being able to let go of it, letting things be imperfect has been, like, a part of being an entrepreneur and putting things out there for people to see and
Mm.
buy. But, like, yeah, yeah, having a job sounds so easy. It would not I can't do it, and my husband also is like, "I recognize that it will just is not gonna be a thing that you can do." Um, but it also yeah, that journey of entrepreneurship is a very it's a journey that forces you to confront all the different parts of yourself and also to realize your own power because you make something, you put out in the world, you made your own money, you know? To have never, like, been officially sort of employed in a normal capacity is pretty awesome.
Yeah. It's really interesting though because, it's very direct. It's like,
Yeah.
um I'm my the people that buy from me, like, those
Mhm.
people support me, and it's
Right.
like, and so there's this very interesting, like, relationship of,
Mhm.
um, providing value and, contributing in major ways to their lives and, like, loving them and caring about them
Mhm.
and then, yeah, also just, like, being paid by
Mhm.
people directly, I feel like it's
Right.
very when you just, like, have a company paying you, um,
Mhm.
you kind of lose touch with, like, that interpersonal dynamic of money
Mm.
exchange, and so it's very, like, direct. It's like, there are people who buy things from me that literally puts food on my table,
Yes.
and there's no intermediary there.
Mhm. Yeah, it's very alive that way, especially with one-on-one services like coaching or like I give readings. And so every time someone buys, I'm like, oh, I get to see that person again. Or like, or my coaching clients, like that's a very important and very special relationship to someone to be able to coach them through something and to be trusted with that mentorship. And so like it's so much more than just like getting paid. It's like this energy exchange and the idea that people actually want to spend time with you and get the learning that you're offering, and receive the spiritual gifts that you have is so special. And
Yeah.
then I mean, every time I read a chart, I learn something. So it's like, thank you for letting me, thank you for letting me read for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Totally. Magic is so cool.
It is so cool. It's always fun to talk with other people who get it,
Y-
because this is a whole world
Yeah.
separate from the overworld, that most people are used to. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
and it's really cool that we get to, I don't know, like we live in a world that allows us to do this kind of work. Or like I'm just like
Yes.
a crazy lady on the internet, like hawking my
Yeah.
wares. And
Uh-huh.
isn't that so beautiful that we can do that?
It's so amazing that we can reach so many people, just like through phones or internet. I mean, my grandmother loved going to psychics, and so she took me, when I was like considered old enough like to get a tarot reading, and this lady read my cards when I was like 19, and everything she said was absolutely accurate, completely on point. I accepted none of it because I didn't know myself at all at the time. She's like, your current boyfriend, not the one for you. Like, your current major, like not the one for you. And I was just like, whatever, lady. But absolutely on point now that like I've lived that story, I can see. And, like she's probably, maybe she had like an ad in the classifieds, or maybe it was just like word of mouth, So the idea that like we can reach so many people as spiritual entrepreneurs now is a game changer.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so curious about this, because it seems like you really remember what this woman said to you.
I remember a couple of things, like the boyfriend thing, really upset me at the time. And then that I was in the wrong major, I was like, no way. But I
What
really
was your
didn't know
major at
myself
the
at
time?
19. I did I did finish that major in anthropology, but I also ended up double majoring in English because writing was my true love. And so like she was more on point with that. She's like, I see you telling stories, I don't really see you being like an anthropologist. I don't really know where that comes from. I think with anthropology, what I was actually looking for was magic. I would take a course in like ancient civilizations, and then it would always kind of disappoint me because we would never really get to the magic part of it, which is actually what I got more through witchcraft and like coven work and seeing the more esoteric side of things like Egyptian magic. But like that, I think that's what I was looking for in college that I could not find, but I had this feeling like so close, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I did a lot with anthropology, and I have a minor in anthropology
Hmm.
because it's a big part of cognitive science. It's like looking at culture and humans and everything.
Sure.
And when I was in college, I was a little bit older, so I was like deep in my I was deep in the like ayahuasca world. And
Mm.
we did one of the like classes. This is such, I mean, there were a lot of classes like, in like studying religion, all the different religions was so cool.
Yes.
But one of the classes that I took was we did like a deep dive into fire walking, like
Mm.
cultures that do like fire walks.
Hmm.
And yeah, I don't know. Anyways, I feel like you were onto something with that, like understanding like
Totally.
culture and like the human experience and like
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I don't regret it. I think she was just more like, that's your career is going to be different than that, or
yeah.
she just, whatever she was seeing in the cards, she was like, that doesn't really match. Um, but yeah, I think it's interesting how a psychic reading can be totally on point and still not resonate with the person because it hasn't happened yet or they aren't as aware of themselves,
Mhm.
especially with younger people. I find that.
Mhm. Yeah. I'm curious
Yeah.
like if you have a favorite tarot deck that you work with.
Ooh. Um, It's hard to pick favorites, but I I think the Morgan Greer is the kind of, like, Rider-Waite centered deck that I keep going back to as, like, a basis for me, even though I have lots of other decks that are different and use different imagery. The Morgan Greer has, like, this 70s kind of, like, aesthetic, a lot of, like, the royalty is very royal, very purple, and, I find that imagery really speaks to me in terms of archetypal tarot.
Mm,
Yeah. Do you
interesting.
have a favorite deck? Do you work with tarot
Yes.
decks?
Yes.
Mhm.
So I work with the Thoth deck, and
Okay.
I've had the
Yes,
same
that
deck
makes
for like
sense.
20 years. And
Yeah.
I've bought like the Rider Waite and the Marseille and
Mhm.
other decks. And
Yeah.
I think I'm just so from it's like ingrained in my brain that I've really
Yeah.
struggled to like work with other decks. Um,
Mm. Well, it's different. I mean, it's not Rider-Waite based, and so the Thoth is its own thing.
It's
Yeah.
really its own thing. It's so
Yeah.
but I remember, like, the first time I ever worked with it, I had, like, full body goosebumps. I was like, "Holy shit, this is fu" I think that was also one of the things that made me really believe in magic was the Thoth deck because I was like, "This
Yeah.
shit is for fucking real." Like, it just sometimes it
Mm.
just signal like, it, like, shows off. It's just like, "What, you don't believe? Like, watch this bitch." You know what I
Here's
mean?
this answer. Yeah, they can be so sassy.
Yeah, yeah.
Totally.
So I'm really kind of like attached to that deck, but I want to explore other decks. And I feel like there's a lot of really
Mm.
cool artists making decks now that I'm like, I want like a modern set, like deck that's like an
Yeah.
artist created. Like I want to support artists in their decks. And I'm also just like,
Mhm.
I am so attached to my deck. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I found that different decks have, like, different purposes for me. Like, there are decks that I just work with for, like, one deity or, like, one purpose, and then decks
Oh,
that want to
interesting.
work with clients, but decks that do not wanna work with clients.
Interesting.
Um, yeah, and I've had decks be like, "You know what? You're asking too much, and you're making me tired, like, fuck off." Like, "Just put me aside for a while," you know? So
Right.
yeah, having different decks can be useful for different purposes or just like to get kind of a different perspective. I've one that like I really like
Yeah.
Erin Morgenstern's deck that's based on the Night Circus. I use a lot for creativity and asking questions about creative projects.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know you're inspiring me to like branch out more.
Yeah.
I think the
So I
ones I've
find
tried were
yeah.
maybe too, like, iconic. There's almost, like,
Mm,
pressure around it, it's like and
yeah.
also, I know the Thoth like, I actually cut out all of my cards, like, 10 years ago.
Hmm.
I cut out the borders, so there's
Yeah.
it doesn't say on the card what it is, but, like, I know all the
Hmm.
cards, and when I read the
Right.
other decks, I don't know what the cards are, and so I'm like, "Do I have to, like, look this
So
up?"
there's a
And I
slower process of
it's very
learning the
humbling.
imagery. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I have also,
Yeah.
been had the pleasure of taking a course with Matt Oren, who wrote Psychic Witch and Psychic Tarot, and, learning kind of these psychic ways of reading the tarot where you don't necessarily need to know what the, book meaning is of the card, although it's good to learn that basis for the Rider-Waite themed decks, but that you're looking at the imagery and getting the sense from the card of what that means in this particular context for this reading, and that's usually how I read. But I agree, when you get a new deck, there's a bit of a learning curve of, like, what the imagery of this deck is saying to you, or, like, what there's sometimes it's like the wands are, branches and the pentacles are rocks, and so you have to, like, learn all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally,
Mhm.
totally. Well, I'm feeling inspired and I'm feeling excited about magic, and I've really
Yeah.
enjoyed talking and,
I enjoyed
getting
talking
to know
to you
you.
too. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Yeah, thank
this
you,
was really
Brittany.
fun. Thank you.
And how can people find you, and how can
Oh,
people find
yes.
me?
Yes. So people can find me at brittanypastuhov.com. We can put it in the show notes. I also have a podcast called Third House Podcast that this will be on. And I'm on Instagram at brittany.pastuhov. So you can find me in all of those places and look me up. And how can people find you?
Yeah, so my website is lucybaldwin.me. Um,
Okay.
and I also am on Instagram at lucy.baldwin.author.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. Speaking
Awesome.
of things that we don't do, I have an unpublished book that I've been sitting on for like years. I wrote it years ago, and I'm
Mm.
determined to
Yeah.
publish it this year. Yeah.
I hope you do. Yeah.
Thanks. Wish me luck.
Sometimes you have to find the right time, for the magic to enter the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it hasn't been
Yeah.
time. It just hasn't been time yet, but it is time now.
Mhm.
So I'm forcing the issue, actually. I'm just forcing the issue. I'm
Good.
making it time.
Use
That's
that
what I can do.
agency. Weave that
Yeah, that's
fate.
what we get to do.
Yes.
Magicians. Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Well,
lovely
talk
to
to you
speak with
again,
you.
hopefully.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.